Hi guys, welcome to the next video on the chapter Age of Industrialization. In the previous video, we discussed about the industrialization in the European colonies. In this video, we'll be discussing the setting up of factories in the European colonies like India. Now, in India, the factories were set up quite late, probably in the mid-19th century. So at that time, the first factory to come up was the cotton mills. So in 1854 in Bombay, we had the first cotton mill, and by 1862 we had 4 mills at work with approximately 100,000 spindles and 2,000 plus looms. So this was the scenario in Bombay. In Bengal, in 1855 we had the first jute mill. Bengal is famous for its jute, whereas Bombay is famous for its cotton. Hence, the factories being cotton mill and jute mill. Now, in North India, we had the Elgin mill. So, Elgin mill is the wool mill. So, for woolen clothes, we had the Elgin mill in Kanpur, and first cotton mill was in Ahmedabad in 1860s. So, this was in North India. In Madras, on the other hand, by 1874, we had spinning and weaving mills. So there was production through spinning and weaving mills. So this was the situation of India in the late 19th century. So the first cotton mill again 1854 in Bombay, the jute mill in 1855, the Elgin mill in 1860s in Kanpur. So this was the situation in India. Now, who set up these factories? These were the early entrepreneurs. So these entrepreneurs set up an empire there. So in Bengal there was Dwarkanath Tagore, who set up 6 joint stock companies in the 1830s and 40s. So through this he accumulated a lot of money. Generally, he was the person who was trading with China. So all these people were mostly trading with China, and hence had created a network through which they had accumulated capital to set up various factories. So Bombay, they were Parsis like the Dinshop Petit, Jamshedji Nursewala Tata, and they had become so rich through gaining capital by trading with China. Seth Hukumchand, he built the first Indian jute mill in Calcutta in 1855. There were others who also accumulated through other trade networks. Trade networks like Madras, trading with Burma, then Madras and East Africa. Then there were also some who just carried work in one country in India itself, but from one place to another. Then banking money, transferring funds. Through this way, these people also accumulated cash. So this was the scenario. They were trading mostly with China. Then there were other trade networks also, and then some people accumulated capital by moving capital from one place to another in India itself. So this was the situation of the early entrepreneurs. Now, early entrepreneurs could also function quite limited. The reason for that was that East India Company had gained monopoly over most of the industrial networks, and the situation was such that since Europe had also gone through an industrial revolution, so they wanted their finished products to come back to India and dominate the market in India. So the Indian entrepreneurs, Indian merchants were barred for trading with European manufactured goods because they wanted the manufactured goods to come from Europe. So they could only export raw materials and food grains. So this was the situation. Raw cotton, opium, wheat, indigo, etc. were the ones which were exported from India. And gradually, even the shipping business was done only by the European managing agencies. So everything was in such a way that Europe had control over the market in India. Till the First World War, European managing agencies controlled a large sector of Indian industries. Then European merchants industrialists had their own chambers of commerce. So chambers of commerce is basically a local organization that helps the local businesses. So they will look at various agendas, what should be done to increase the business, and in these chambers of commerce only the Europeans were allowed, the Indians were not allowed. So the Indians were not allowed to join the chamber of commerce. So this was the situation of the early entrepreneurs. Now looking at how the various factories affected the workers. Since we had a lot of industries coming up, so the supply of workers also had to increase. So there was increase in demand for workers originally. So in most industrial regions, the workers were coming from the districts around. So like if we look at the situation in Bombay, more than 50% of the workers were from Ratnagiri, which is close to Bombay. In the mills of Kanpur, workers from villages within Kanpur district itself. So these were all those people, the peasants and artisans, who found no work in village. So these were the people who moved to the various cities. Then mill workers moved between villages and cities because they also had their harvest. So they would go back to the villages at the time of harvest. So these were those guys who used to travel back and forth between villages and the cities. Plus, when they used to go back to the cities, they used to bring in more workers because they used to tell other workers that there is employment in the cities. So a lot of workers from villages would come up, and this increased the number of people, number of workers seeking jobs, and hence there were more people wanting jobs than the jobs available. So this led to a situation where getting jobs became difficult, and the industrialists had an option to choose which jobber to whom they provide the jobs. Hence they preferred people from their own villages. Hence they started demanding money from those people as well to whom they were providing jobs. Hence the situation of worker also diminished. So this is the role of the factories, that it had an impact on the Indian scenario. Okay, so this is all about the setting up of factories in India. In the next video, we'll be discussing about the peculiarities of industrial growth.